I use a very expensive web camera when I'm doing these studio shots. It's one with a large sensor, it works very well in low light, and it kind of gives that blurred background effect which I do find aesthetically pleasing. However, I've never used my GoPro as a webcam simply because when I first started making these videos, I didn't have enough external light for the small sensor to work very well in a studio indoor shoot like this. However, now that my videos have progressed, I do have more lighting about the place, and I think it's time to revisit the whole using a GoPro as a webcam thing. So in this video, we're going to look at using a GoPro as a webcam, what the advantages are, what the disadvantages are, and more importantly, should you connect it as a web camera or should you use the HDMI out with the media mod, and which will give better results. So folks, sit back, relax, and enjoy. This is DemonView. Hi folks, welcome back to the channel. I do appreciate you tuning in, and in this video we're going to look at using the GoPro as a web camera, what the advantages are, disadvantages are, and what's the best way to connect it up. Now for those who don't know, when COVID came along and lockdowns were happening, suddenly everybody was working from home. Everybody needed a web camera and they were in extremely short supply. So GoPro decided to put their engineers on it, and they found out a way to get basically like a network camera IP feed emulated over a USB port on the GoPro camera, and thus the GoPro webcam was born. Now there are advantages and disadvantages to using a GoPro as a web camera, so let's look at those right now. So here we are, this is the feed from my GoPro Hero 12, and as you can see it's working perfectly well as a web camera, right? Well, there might be a few little disadvantages, such as you might notice there's some lag between the audio and the video. And that's just something that's inherent with the GoPro. You could fix this in things like OBS Studio by adjusting the timing, putting in a slight delay with the audio or a slight delay with the video to sync things up. But because it's using an emulated IP feed over USB, there is going to be some delay there. Also, the GoPro does not support audio. I still have to record with this mic. If I didn't have a mic, I'd have to use the really bad kind of like laptop mics or something. There's just no option to get audio over the actual GoPro when using it as a webcam, unlike traditional webcams. Now, you do see that the colors do pop a little bit more. The DemonView sign back there is much greener. The logo on my shirt is much redder. My face looks much pinker, and unfortunately there is no color adjustment when using the GoPro as a web camera. You have very limited options. You can adjust the field of view. I'm shooting in linear at the moment, but let's see if we can adjust this to wide, and this might crash things. Let's go super view first of all. Okay, this is super view and you can see everything. So yeah, you do get a much larger field of view, but as you can see, it's pretty messy here in the garage. I might not want everyone seeing all that like they're seeing it right now. So now let's take a look at wide. And wide has cropped in just a little bit more, cutting out some of it, but as you can see, it's still very fish-eyed looking. And you know, I don't really think that looks great. So let's go into linear. Here we are, linear mode, much flatter, much less fisheye. It's still extremely wide though. And you know, for me, I'm going to go now to the narrow, which was what I was shooting in before. And there we go, narrow, zoomed in a lot more, cutting out more of the background. And I think that's pretty good. Now, yeah, you can use it as a web camera, but now look at some more disadvantages. First of all, this is a 1080p picture. That's the maximum that the GoPro is going to support as a USB web camera. 1080p picture, and if you look at me moving my hands, see how blurred that is? That's 30 frames per second in low light, you know, so the shutter speed is low, and you can see some, if I do that fast enough, you might be able to see some visual tearing there where it just doesn't really keep up that well. So yes, you can use your GoPro as a web camera. Does it mean it makes a good web camera? I don't think it makes the best webcam. I'm sure if I had much more lighting, I could make something a bit more decent. However, it does have some advantages that the studio webcam doesn't have. And let's go switch back to that. So here we are, switched back to the studio webcam. Much kind of like, I do have a bit of a blur in there, but that's actually by choice. I put it in there. I could actually shoot up to 60 frames per second here if I wanted to. Now, I did have to just move my GoPro camera back, as because that fisheye lens is actually such a wide field of view, even on narrow, I had to pull the camera like really close to me. So if you're using the GoPro's webcam, that's going to be really close to you. Now, I do prefer the studio webcam. I think the pictures is just much better. It's much clearer. I can also adjust the colors, saturate them, desaturate them. I have control over the image, which is something I don't have as a GoPro's web camera. However, realize this, I paid about $300 for this studio web camera, and GoPro, well, you could pay $300 for. when I decide to shut down this little video clip and then I want to go outside filming, I'm not going to be able to bring my $300 studio webcam with me. I mean, I could, but then I'd have to bring a laptop, I'd have to bring a power supply, and I'm not going to go skydiving, swimming, or snorkeling with the GoPro. I can actually do all of those. That's a huge advantage that the GoPro actually has. You can basically decide to use it as your web camera, but then afterwards go and do your adventure sports outside. And yeah, if you don't mind a 1080p picture at 30 frames per second, then the GoPro might actually make a better choice. I mean, I think one of the first people to actually try this was Creative Labs. They had the Creative Labs Webcam Go, and they basically decided to make a webcam that you could unplug, bring around you with you, and then use as a video recorder and a camera. Wasn't really good as a webcam. Wasn't really good as a video recorder. Wasn't really good for taking photos either. Unlike the GoPro, excels at video, excels at taking photos, and, you know, mediocre webcam use, at least in my particular use. So yeah, using the GoPro as a webcam does have advantages over a studio camera in some areas, but like I said, the picture quality and the fact that this is 4K, that kind of puts it way, way above what the GoPro can do. Not to say that the GoPro Hero 13 mightn't improve things there. I mean, if people are trying to use GoPros as a webcam, and they are, maybe GoPro will actually do something different with the 13, and I think that would be interesting. But let's continue on. Now for the next part, I will have to probably go digging for a HDMI cable. I'm not sure where I have one, but I'm sure I can find one. So this here is how I have the GoPro connected at the moment. The screens are on, it's in webcam mode, and people talk about overheating with the GoPros. If I was using this as a full-time web camera, I'd probably see if I could turn these screens off, but so far, put my hands here on the feet at the bottom. It's not warm. I think as a webcam, because it's going in 1080p at the moment, it's fine. There's going to be no overheating. But like I said, you can't adjust the image quality or anything like that when it's connected as a web camera. So what's your next thing to do? Well, it's to connect via HDMI and use a HDMI capture card. You have people going out buying stuff like the Elgato capture card that can capture up to 4K. Absolutely pointless. If your GoPro is only doing 1080p, why would you pay $200 for a 4K capture card if you're shooting in 1080p? Yeah, spend about, you know, whatever this costs, 30 to 40 bucks. I think it actually costs less than that. That might have been a $10 model. Either way, cheapo capture card really works well for me. You'll find them on Amazon. I'll try and put a link below. But yeah, let's see if we can find a HDMI cable and try this little baby out and see what the difference is. Okay, so right now I have connected my GoPro Hero 12 to the HDMI capture card, and what you're seeing is the gallery, because that's what it boots straight into. I'm going to press the side mode button here and bring it over to the live feed and press the shutter button on top. And now you may have noticed something interesting. There's an echo. Let me fix that. And basically, this is a good thing. When you're connected to the HDMI, the microphone on the media mod does work. Now you're thinking, okay, it doesn't sound great. Well, that's because it's all the way over here. That's how far away it is. A small microphone, it's a directional microphone. It's really kind of meant for cutting down on wind noise and stuff. So therefore, it doesn't sound that great. Let me mute the HDMI audio and switch back over to my Yeti. Now, as you can see, the picture doesn't look that great, but that's because of the setting I'm using. I'll tell you what, let's go through this one by one. First of all, as you can see, we don't have a clean feed. We've got memory card remaining, and we've got battery percent. And yeah, if you plug this in with the USB, you could actually be charging this camera. At the moment, though, it's just using the HDMI out. If I press the mode button, excuse my hand, it tells you what mode it's in. And there we go. If I hit that, now I have a clean feed. Okay, so the picture quality, you're thinking, okay, this is even worse, but don't forget, that's because I can now use the settings on my phone. In fact, I'm actually controlling the camera with the app. So if I was going to the selfie setting, as you can see, it's much darker, more pink. This is the kind of basic, I don't think I actually adjusted selfie, but all my settings are for outside, bright, outdoors. If I go to my cinema setting, I'm using the 8:7 whole sensor here. As you can see, it's a much flatter image. I can really kind of post-process that. It's using the whole sensor, which means I can crop in afterwards if I wanted to do that. Indoor shooting, this is usually what I use if I'm indoors, but not in a studio setting like this. But, you know, pretty noisy image. Again, GoPro's got a very small sensor, so, you know, in dark conditions like this, it is struggling. This is my ultra slow-mo setting. That's why it's actually so dark and so noisy, because this is set up for 240 frames per second. We're going to get into some of this, though, by the way. And look at this. This is the Instagram setup. This is me shooting 9:16. If I wanted to make a shorts video or an Instagram video directly with the webcam, I can do that. So as you can see in HDMI mode, we do have some advantages. We can adjust all the settings on the camera using the app. That includes the ISO levels, it includes the color, temperature, and even the frame rate. Now I'm shooting in 24 frames per second. There might still be some audio delay because I'm using the Yeti mic and I haven't kind of synced it to the video. But I could also plug in a microphone to the GoPro with the HDMI mod and capture audio that way, including wireless mics, which would clean a lot of that up. I can also record video on the GoPro while I'm doing this. So even though I have a HDMI feed out, I could still be recording video on the camera. And that's great for post-production. It means that later on I could, if I was assembling this video, I could take the video directly off the camera, the audio directly off the camera, no synchronization issues, and then clean all this. As you can see, there's some noise happening up there. I could run that through Neat Video and clean it up. So yeah, it's still not as great as my studio webcam, but having said that, there's a lot I can do with it. I can do much more when it's connected over HDMI than I can if I'm using it as a GoPro web camera. Now, I think that's interesting because I think a lot of people just connect it to the because I think a lot of people just plug in that USB-C cable, they connect that way, and that proves to be a bit of an issue, especially when they don't have enough light adjustment. So yeah, if you're going to use a GoPro as a web camera, I would recommend you get lots of lights and then connect as a HDMI device rather than connect with the GoPro webcam software, as I think you're going to have much more control over the image that you get out of the camera. I think that if you were to use the HDMI capture way, then I think this is where the GoPro would excel as a web camera. But having said that, I still don't think it's got a patch over this camera here, which is the Razer Kaio Ultra Pro. I mean, 4K, 30 frames per second, up to 60 frames per second, HDR support, and the blurred background, whereas the GoPro has that fixed focus lens, so everything is always in focus. So yeah, that's still my opinion. Would I actually use GoPro's web camera? Probably not. But if I had to use my GoPro as a web camera, yeah, I can definitely adjust the settings enough as a HDMI capture device to actually give me a much clearer picture than I could as the USB-C camera. Now, that's one thing I think that might actually change with GoPro Hero 13. If there's no major overhaul of that camera, one of the things they could do is improve the back-end software, especially as a web camera, and that's something that we could look forward to. So hope you found this video interesting. It was kind of done on the fly, created as I went, and that just kind of answers the question for me: should you use the GoPro as a web camera or not? Let me know your thoughts below, whether you think the GoPro worked better in USB-C camera mode, whether you think it worked better as a HDMI camera, and how you think it compared to the actual camera. Are you using GoPro as a web camera? And if so, tell me about your setup. Let me know how it's working out for you. I want to hear from you guys. So hey, folks, I appreciate you tuning in. I appreciate you watching. And for those of you who are members, I hope you appreciate the fact that you get these videos earlier than non-members. So think about that. Think about subscribing. And until next time, cheerio. So people have asked me, why do I like making these videos? The fact is, I like to help you guys troubleshoot issues with your cameras. I love doing product reviews and letting you know what's a good product to buy, what's a product that maybe you should be avoiding. Now, all of these videos take time and they do take money. Nothing in life is free, unfortunately. So if you want to help out with the video production costs, you can use the Buy Me a Coffee link down below. You can use this as an excuse just to say hello or thanks and just buy me a coffee to keep me caffeinated and keep me awake. The more awake I am, the better the jokes are in my videos. Well, maybe. But anyway, if you want to say thanks, if you want to help out video productions cost, buy me a coffee, and I really do appreciate it. So thanks, folks. Really glad that you're watching.